Hey guys, I'm D Mace, your ranter, and this is the Rant Nation. Listen, 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 guys. So, got an update on Gilded Age. Let me know if some of you guys are watching that show. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's becoming one of my favorites. So basically, with the Gilded Age, we're in this episode 3 now. So in this episode, and I'm gonna spoil it. So if you haven't seen it, you want to see it, spoiler alert coming. Get ready for it. One, two, three, four, five. Spoiled. So, Bertha gets a surprise from the Turners. Now, the Turners are, well, Miss Turner is her former maid who tried to make out with her husband, George, and George shut it down. She was very cantankerous, very evil woman. Anyway, so now she's now that winter lady that she needs to be in the society fellowship type thing. But she's that person. So she invited her out to have a fellowship with the women, and the women all came out together and things like that, and they saw Bertha's house and talking about all the, the fancy stuff and all that kind of stuff. Well, at the end, Miss Turner, who comes to her and says, "Hey, George didn't tell you about me and him and I." They had a whole little discourse there, and Bertha's like, "What do you mean?" And she says, "Oh, you need to talk to your husband about that." So of course, the wheels in Bertha's mind is spinning. She's like, "This lady was a maid in my house, and she's saying her and my husband got something going on." So of course, Bertha goes directly to George, and she is ticked. And so George confesses that nothing happened between them, but she did come to his room one night. They sleep in separate bedrooms. You um, she did come to his room one night, and she got in his bed naked. And so Bertha was like, "She did," and George is like, "Yeah, but I sent her away once I found that it wasn't you, and I sent her out the room." Bertha was pissed. Bertha's like, "No, because first of all this time and you didn't tell me." So she's mad at the fact that he didn't tell her, not necessarily the fact that anything didn't happen. She's good about that, but it's just the fact that he didn't tell her. She's like, "This woman has been doing my hair and fixing my clothes and all sort of kind of stuff, and you didn't even tell me that she was trying to sleep with my husband." So Bertha was pissed about that, and so she goes into this whole shutdown mode. Bertha's ain't having dinner with him, nothing like that. She's pissed. So George is feeling it, which he ends up coming and asking her for forgiveness and stuff. He's trying to make it right. So anyway, so yeah, so George is also fighting against the union. So the union's coming. They have back in those days they used to make people work for low pay and a lot of hours, like 12 hours a day for no money, basically, for very little money. So now they were starting to build the unions, and they didn't have the things in place back then like we do now with, all the protocols that we have in place with workers and things like that. They didn't have that back then. This is actually where some of this stuff is starting to come from. And so George is like, "I'm not paying them no extra money," because they feel like they shouldn't have to pay them people a living wage, which it's sad because you're like, "Okay, I need more production, but I'm not giving you any more money." Not considering that you have to make a living too, not considering that you have to live and eat and you have families too. So this is something he's fighting against the union, and he tried to buy the union captain off, and the union captain told George, "You go screw yourself, bro. No, this is about the people for me." And so this is that whole war going on right now. Larry is still seeing Mrs. Blaine. He is still seeing well, she's not married, she's widowed, but she's older than him, and Bertha does not like that. A lot of people don't like that. So he's seeing her now behind people's backs and things like that. They're kind of sneaking around in X, Y, and Z and da 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 and all this sighting and all that kind of stuff. But it's becoming a pinch in society because back then they were very posh and proper, and they had all these rules and regulations about stuff. And so he's still seeing her, and they just having themselves a little ball that's causing that ripple. Peggy Scott, who is Mrs. Van Ryan's secretary. She's a black woman. She is actually going away with her boss to go down to Tuskegee, to go visit Frederick, not Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, because he's creating Tuskegee University. And so they're going down there. Now, you're talking about the 1800s when this is not too far removed from slavery. Slavery wasn't that too far away. In fact, her boss mentions that he's like, back then I was a slave, and he said, you don't understand what that's like. And so, because she's always been up north, her family moved up north to get away from all that kind of stuff down there. But they're getting ready to go back down there. And this is posing a couple problems for her parents. Number one, because he's a married man, it's like you're going out of town with a married man. It's not going to look right. Number two, you're going down to the South. The South back then was extremely upset that they had to let the slaves go. So down south back then, black people still wasn't nobody. You still wasn't nobody, and you could be captured, and you could be taken, and you could just all kind of crazy stuff could still happen. So this is what her mother's really concerned about. She's like, you don't know anything about that down there. Your father and I, we've been there, but you've been raised up north here. You don't know anything about that. You know about the what we've been dealing with here. So Peggy still wants to go because she's like, I need to get my mind off my son, with her son being passed away and stuff like that. I need to get my mind focused on some other things. This is a good opportunity for me to meet Booker T. Washington and da 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 and all that kind of stuff. She's going, so we're gonna see what's going to happen with that when she gets down there. I'm quite sure something crazy is going to happen. It's gonna just bring her mother Dorothy like, oh, I told you not to go down there. But anyway, yeah. So there's that. So they're going down there, and then Aunt Ada, who is uh, Mrs. Van Ryan's sister. Now, she's the sweet one. She's the nice one. She actually has taken a liking to the new, they call them rectors or the new reverend of their church there. And so now she and him have been having, kind of Google eyes for each other and things like that. So there's something that's kind of coming together with that. And you want to see that because she's a sweetheart. She's a really really sweet lady. And so to see her find love and things like that at this stage and age of her life, it's pretty good, man. But yeah, so it's getting really good. A whole lot of stuff is happening. There's some other things that are still happening on the other sides as well with regards to that, man. So yeah, that's the Gilded Age, man. Check it out. It is on Max. It comes on Sunday evenings at 9 p.m. Really, really good show. A whole lot of different dynamics working all at once. The other thing I like, man, is I love the way they dress, particularly Larry. Larry be dressing his behind off, man. I would wear that stuff today, you know. But um, it's really cool. It's really cool. And they also did this thing with Oscar Wilde. For some of you, that Oscar Wilde was a playwright back then, very famous guy. Wild dude. He lived up to his name, Wild. He was wild. And so they went to this big thing. Oscar Wilde's in town. Let's go see Oscar Wilde. Let's go watch his play. And they're really sitting there like, this play is terrible. And then they have a party for him at the end. So they got to tell him how wonderful he is. And they're kind of like, it's really bad, but we got to tell you it's good. But anyway, so it's really interesting, really, really interesting. Look at some of those things, man. So shout out to those people that are producing and directing and writing this show. I'm enjoying it. Hope that you guys will check it out too. The Gilded Age. Again, my name is D. Mesha Ranter. This is the Rant Nation. Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and comment. Send some comments, man. We got to get this thing up because YouTube is watching. They watching me closely. So like, share, and subscribe, man. You guys have a wonderful day. Love you much.